You're watching America Trends. I'm Burt-Godwi, and I'm excited to meet our next guest. She uses both sides of her brain, left and right. She is a software engineer turned brand photographer. So she's a smarty pants and she's creative. And I can't wait to meet her because she's got so many great tips for all of you business owners at home. Emily Kim, welcome to America Trends.
Thank you so much, Mary, for the lovely introduction.
I just gleaned all that just from reading your bio. And actually, I went down your social media feed and your website and all sorts of things about you. So I think I'd like to hear a little bit of your story about how you worked as an engineer and then you started doing photography, and now you're using your knowledge about starting your business and taking great photos to help other entrepreneurs make successful careers for themselves. So talk to me about your story.
So I graduated with a degree in computer science. As I grew up, I always thought I was going to stay in the tech industry. That's kind of what I was bred for. Go to college, get a degree, get a STEM job in computer science, and then go work in tech. So that's what I did. I did that for 3 years, and I loved it, right? So software engineering, I feel, exercises both the left and right side of your brain because it is a creative process in itself. But on the side, while I was in school, I was taking photos to help pay for tuition. So that's how the two connect. That's how I started getting into photography. And I also went to business school as well. So I've always had an entrepreneurial side to my brain. Mm-hmm. And then after doing photography on the side, I eventually started having business owners ask me, hey, can you take photos for my business? And once I got my first client, my first brand client, I thought to myself, oh, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. So that's how the two connected. And then eventually I left my software engineering job to run my photography business full time. So
I love that story, and I love that you're doing something that you love, and then you're also helping people do what they love to do. And I love that it says you offer a triple threat: brand photography, which is huge, and everyone knows now with social media, you need to know how to take good photos. That's number one. Business systems, strategy, and automation, which I want to get into, and then personal brand foundations. And those are all really important things, I would say, especially in this day and age with the boom of digital marketing. So talk to me, though. I want to talk about business system strategy and automations. What do you mean by that, and what are some tips that you have for business owners out there?
Right. So with business, a lot of creative business owners especially, we get into business because we love what we do, right? For me, it was photography. For other people, it's design. For other people, it's baking, all of the creative sides of things. But once you get into business, what you find quickly is that if you don't have a system in place for managing your clients, for communicating with them, for managing your own processes, then it gets out of hand really fast. And one thing that I want to point out is that systems aren't necessarily the same as software, right? If we have a sticky note system where we keep track of clients, even though it's not related to technology and maybe not the most efficient, it's still a system in your business. So that's what I mean when I say system.
Well, we're kind of going through that here at Loft 100 Studios because we're growing. We're going to be moving into a new business and adding probably new people in the fold and new shows. And so I'm currently working on helping that with our Sully Entertainment Group, Loft 100 Studios. And it is, looking at what systems are in place to bring new people on. What do you do when this happens? There's so many levels of it. It's within your own employee system, and then also your customers or your product, whatever you're doing. So there's lots of different levels there. And how does automation, well, first of all, I want to go to, it's not, when you said systems, it's not necessarily software. When I think of a system, I think of a process and let's say Freckle or something that logs time tracking. Is that kind of what you are talking about when you're talking about systems?
Exactly.
Okay.
So time tracking is one system. And then automations, when it comes to business, also falls under systems. You can use automations within your system, but systems as a whole could be anything from, like I said, the Post-it note situation to your time tracking to how you're communicating with clients. Even if you're sending snail mail, you still need a system for that. Where do you keep the letters? Where do you send them? How often do you send them? All of those processes are a system.
Yes, and they can become a little overwhelming. And I feel like you don't know until you're in it. Like I was just saying, I'm learning new things. We're getting live audiences for one of our shows. And I think I can't manage the way I'm going if we get bigger. So that's the red flag of saying, okay, this is when I need automation, a system, and then so where do we go from there? Where does someone, when a business owner says, oh, I'm going to need a system in place here, what do I do? What's the first step?
That's a great question. So I look at systems as a three-part approach. So there are three things that you can do to start implementing systems within your business. The first is to template, which is for any kind of static piece of content, static communication. Let's say there's an email that you send all the time, there's a message that you send often, a proposal that you send often, or a document that you create. That can turn into a template. So anything that I have to create more than once, I turn it into a template. Within my email inbox, that's, in Gmail, you can set up templates so that you can send those in your inbox pretty quickly. And that's step one. Step
I didn't
two
know that.
is-
I was today years old when I learned that, and I'm going to be doing that after the show. Thank you. So next.
Yes, yes, that's my favorite tip to share. I love when people discover it. It's amazing. So step two is to automate, which is using software to do an action that you would be doing manually. So maybe that's manually creating a Google Doc or a folder on your computer, or sending a certain email or anything like that. If you find yourself doing that over and over and over again, eventually that's going to add up, right? So if you're onboarding a team member and you have to give them access to all of these different things, that's something that we should look into automating so that you can save time every week as you're bringing on these people. And then,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. The third step is delegating. So once you've templated everything that you can template and automated everything that you can automate, if there's something that's too complicated for either of those, we delegate, and that's when we look at bringing on an additional team member, whether that's for an online business owner, a virtual assistant, or for an in-person studio, an in-person assistant. That's when we look at adding to the team.
Okay, and is this something that you do? Somebody can hire you at emilykim.co, could hire you to do this for businesses?
Yes, I do. I offer VIP days for strategy. So what we do is we dive into all of the different systems and processes that you have in place, and then I'll recommend what else we need to move forward. And then you can also hire me to do those implementation services as well.
Okay, and so that's an amazing service that you offer. And then also I want to talk about the brand, or the brand photography side of it, because as I said, it's a huge deal, I think, for businesses to get really quality photography. And what I love about you have the sunlight space, right? Is that a space that you created where you can have events and also people could come in to take their photos, right? And the key of it is that you have beautiful daylight, white walls, white space, and sunshine. So talk to me about that.
So I'm in the space right now.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Sunlight space. Yeah, thank you. And the reason that I found this space, selected it, was because of the natural light. So I don't have any artificial lights turned on. It's all natural. And how I came across it was when I was planning my brand photography business and still working full-time at my job, I thought to myself, it would be really nice to have a studio that I could use for my own clients. Because what I was doing was we were either going to their own homes, their own offices, or renting additional spaces, and those weren't always suitable for what they needed. So in the back of my brain, I was always thinking, it would be so nice to have a studio. And I just decided to look one day while I was still working at my job. This was the first place that I saw, the only place I visited, and when I saw it, I knew immediately, this is the one. This is the one I'm going to sign, and then that's what led me to run this full time. And I also, when I'm not using it, I rent it out to other creatives, because I knew if I was looking for a space like this, several other creatives probably were too. So now it's full of creatives 4 or 5 days out of the week, and then I'm in here 2 or 3 days a week, and I love it.
That's genius. And I mean, I think that one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned in the past, I don't know how many years, but that sunlight, daylight, natural light is the best lighting, especially for food photography or anything. I mean, you could shoot anything, but it just looks so much better. I mean, you have no candle lighting on you right now, and it looks so nice. And that really pops out on social media, on all the different platforms. So is that one of the #1 tips that you give people?
Yes, natural light especially. There are ways to recreate natural light using artificial light. There's varying levels, right? You can start at $50 for your setup and go all the way up to, tens of thousands of dollars, as if you were setting up a full-on production studio. But natural light is free, it's easy to use, and I highly recommend it.
And so we don't have a lot of time, but your personal brand foundation, talking about building a personal brand, can you just speak on that?
Absolutely. So when people started booking me for brand photography, something that I found was that once they would receive the photos, they weren't sure what to use them for, how to post them, or where to put them. So that's where personal branding comes in. It's really important to know how you relate to your business and the types of content that you create and how you want people to think about you when you're not in the room. That's really what personal branding is. So when I have clients that come to me for brand photography and they're like, okay, these are amazing photos, I know I need a headshot, I know where to put that, but I don't know how to use the rest of this content, then I walk them through how to use that, how to use their content, their photo content in written content as well, and combining those
And
together.
a personal brand. I love it. Mostly on their social media. So Emily Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. People can find you at emilykim.co or at emilykim.co on Instagram, or at the Sunlight Space, also on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. Engineer turned brand photographer. Wonderful stuff. And you're watching America Trends. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got more right after this quick break.